Michigan basketball really needed to just have a fantastic transfer portal season. They're coming off just a disastrous campaign last year that ended with them firing their coach and bringing in Dusty May from Florida Atlantic, who's just an excellent hire. He's a really proven coach, and he had a big task in front of him. He had to reassemble and recreate a roster and make it competitive in the Big Ten. So it's even more impressive that, what he was able to do is bring in, at this point, six guys who all fit needs, are going to fit into a system, and more importantly, are going to put them in a position to compete in the Big Ten. So for that reason, we're considering Michigan to have one of the perfect portal seasons of 2024. Hello and welcome back to Green Flag Sports Perfect Portal Series. This is our, I believe, fourth installment overall. And like I talked about in the intro, we're going to focus on Michigan basketball today. To recap and give everyone an idea of what we're doing, this is not about who has the highest ranked portal class in the nation. This is more about who has assembled teams that make them materially better than they were last year and is putting them in a position to be truly competitive next year. So perfection for me is more about what you were able to do with your resources, what you were able to improve upon from last year, and how all of the pieces that you've assembled fit together into a cohesive unit. So Michigan was able to do, a very, very good job. They brought in some very proven commodities that fit a lot of different needs on the court. And again, most of your rotation could be built entirely around these guys that you built or you assembled in the transfer portal. So let's just kind of take one quick step back and talk about the transfer portal in general. So when you're trying to construct a team and rebuild your roster almost completely, there are several roles you need to fill. And for Michigan early on, two of those roles seem to be we need big guys who can compete on the Big Ten level, who can play a very physical brand of basketball. And they were able to land two of those guys that can actually play together on the court and bring a ton of size, experience, and skill. The first one we're going to talk about is Danny Wolf from Yale. So he is, a 7-footer, but he's not, a back to the basket guy necessarily, which is really important for the overall context of the portal class for Michigan, and we'll get into that later. But he is very skilled, can do things with the ball in his hands, can create mismatch problems without being a blow you away athletically type of guy. So we're going to show a highlight package of Danny Wolf, and I just want you to focus in on the amount of skill he brings to the table, some of the things he does to the ball, with the ball, I should say, and then how he's able to be creative around the rim without having just super dynamic athleticism. So that being said, let's take a look at Danny Wolf now. Danny Wolf is not your typical 7-footer. Like, he is someone who can get to the rim with ease off of the dribble, is comfortable playing on the perimeter, or comfortable catching the ball kind of off of a quick dish from a guard. He moves very well, finds space that's open, and is someone that you can play alongside another traditional big like we talked about, which is just a huge plus for his game. He has a lot of touch and finesse to his game, but does not shy away from contact either when he goes to the rim, which is a big plus for me. I do question some of his ability to finish over a little bit more of a larger athletic defender, but on the whole, I think he's going to be just fine. He is someone that Michigan is going to love to have. He fits kind of what the mold of a Big Ten big looks like. So I love the addition. I love his flexibility and the lineup options he's going to give them. Overall, a great pickup. So Michigan has Danny Wolf on the board. He's committed and locked in, and you feel really good about bringing in somebody who can impact and fit that Big Ten mold. Now you got, a lot of times logically you think, okay, now we got to focus entirely on guards. But, the Florida Atlantic's coach had, a player that he could bring with him who is also a 7-footer, but a completely different type of prospect. And that's Vladislav Goldin. So he is your more true back to the basket, highly efficient player that is just really big, really tough, really physical on the block. So you'll notice a stark difference. We're going to roll these highlights here in a second, but he is a completely different player, brings other things to the table that will allow him to be on the floor as Danny Wolf at the same time, which is going to be very dynamic. But let's take a look at what he's able to do on the low block right now. So in contrast to Danny Wolf, Goldin is a much different player. He's way more comfortable being back to the basket or just operating off of a pick and roll situation, but he has a very good touch. He can finish over his right or left shoulder, which, keeps defenders off balance, doesn't let them play him one particular way, can get to his spot a little more effectively that way. Has a small amount of face up to his game. I wouldn't say it's a lot, but when you talk about just having a big who's going to command, some double teams occasionally, who's going to, be a big target for guards to find, you don't find many better than him. He's someone that, I think pairs very well with Danny Wolf. Like, they're going to be able to play together and not step on each other's toes, which when you're assembling players into a class is something you have to watch out for. He'll be a good big. So with these two pieces in the fold, you're really starting to feel comfortable with what you have in the front court. Like, you have some athleticism, you have some strength and grit, and you have guys who can be dynamic with the ball and perhaps create some mismatch problems on the perimeter if they're playing out there. So now you got to start turning that focus and attention a little bit towards the guard spots. And I think that Michigan did some really creative and nice things assembling this guard class that they did. So the first guy I want to talk about is Tre Donaldson. And he's not somebody that is going to blow you away from a stats perspective. Just overall, if you're looking at points per game, rebounds per game, all of the traditional stats that you see on the back of a player card, that's not what blows me away about Tre Donaldson. It's just really how he plays the game. So when you look at his season last year at Auburn, he was a very efficient passer, led the team in assists. He handles himself very well on the court. Like, I love him as a point guard in an offense with other threats around him. But he's also very efficient. So when he did look to score, he wasn't jacking up shots, which is, a pet peeve of mine from especially a point guard position. But I want to show you a clip package of him making really good reads and really good passes, because I think that's what his primary role is going to be for Michigan next year. So with that said, let's look at Tre Donaldson through the lens of a ball handler and distributor. So I really love just the way that Tre Donaldson carries himself on the court. His head's always up. He's trying to find the right place to put the ball, and he has skills that allow him to put the ball in tight spots in places where only his man can catch it. So, he finds little slips and cuts very well, in my opinion. He's looking opposite side of the court for, opportunities to swing it over if the defense collapses. One thing you're just going to see about him is he lives off getting paint touches. He gets them frequently. It causes defenses to react to him, to move to him, and then find the open man that creates, which is just a great trait for a guard. You don't see it here, but his offense is pretty efficient as well when he does decide to shoot or get to the rim. So I love him as like a floor general kind of point guard. In modern basketball, you can't just have one guy who you're comfortable with the ball being in his hands, then have a bunch of off-ball threats. That's just not how things work nowadays. So it was imperative for Michigan to bring in other guys who could come in and do things with the ball in their hands, be a threat on the perimeter to create. Like, creation is just such a highly important aspect of any modern offense. So they go out and they bring in Roddy Gayle from Ohio State, and an arch rival, but they bring him in because he does a lot of things that they need really well. He wasn't a super efficient player last year at Ohio State, but when you look at his film and you look at specifically where was he getting shots and where could he really help an offense, you see him pop off the page a little bit, as a pick and roll ball handler. So it's just an alternative option to Tre Donaldson. You can get the ball in his hands, run a pick and roll, and he can attack the rim, make things happen, and put you in a position to take some pressure off of everybody else. So when you look at this highlight package, just take note of how he's creating, getting to the rim, finishing in different spots on the court, and making him a little bit more dynamic than probably any other piece that Michigan had or has brought in. So let's take a look at Roddy Gayle now. So I think Roddy Gayle sets himself up to be a really good secondary ball handler, someone that can be a catch and shoot option, but can also do things with the ball in their hands. Like, he reads the defense pretty well. He is selective on what finishes he uses situationally. And by that, I mean, he can finish with a floater if the defense backs off. He can get all the way to the rim and isn't scared of some traffic around there, which is a really good thing. He is someone who handles pressure pretty well from the film that I've been able to watch on him. Can read a pick and roll, can understand when to make a pass versus try to get to the rim. He did not shoot a very high percentage last year, so he will need to improve there. But overall, he's an ideal kind of second option in your half court offense. Okay, so at this point, Michigan has brought in, 4 pieces, 2 bigs who have a bit of a different dynamic between them. You have 2 guards who are very similar, but do things, that have different strengths. Now, you've assembled a group of 4 guys who most of them can shoot, all except for Goldin, but they're not, like a high volume, efficient shooter. So it leaves a hole in your roster, and you have to start kind of peeking through the options and seeing, okay, who can I bring in that's going to be a high level shooter and who's going to provide the space that we're going to need for these other pieces to work together. And so, then in comes Sam Walters. So he was at Alabama, and I, did not know this until I looked at his stats a little more in depth. But if you look at his overall stats, he was shooting, high 30% marks, like 39%, I think, for the year. But when you take out certain parts of where he was getting shots, specifically in transition, he wasn't that great for whatever reason. If you start looking at just spot up shooting in the half court offense, he was shooting over 50%. Like, he is a knockdown shooter. So, take a look at this clip package. Note his release, as always, like we do with shooters. Is it quick? Is it repeatable? Is it high? Is it going to be something where he can just have a little bit of space and be a very effective shooter? And I really believe that it is. He's a lefty, love lefty shooters. Let's take a look at him shooting the ball. If you've watched enough of these videos, I'll call it out every single time. I love a lefty shooter. I don't know why. I just think it's very pure. They get off the ball very quickly. I don't know what I love about it. But Sam Walters is, a really effective shooter. Like I said, he shot over 50% from spot up threes, which I think is where he'll operate more often than not last year on a higher volume. He gets the ball from the pocket to the release really quick. So I don't think like closeouts are a big issue. You'll see here in a lot of these makes, I pulled at random from his overall selection of makes, they're getting closed out on pretty contested, more often than not. So I love his ability to make tough shots and be an open knockdown threat. So at this point, that's a 5-man class that I think you are very comfortable with. But they're not done. They can still add a little bit more. And they found a bit of a gem in Rubin Jones from North Texas. So he's not somebody that's going to blow you away, that is going to be like the banner of your class. But he does things really well, or, has the potential to do things really well that other guys that you've assembled might not be able to do. And the one area that I think he could be relied on or come in and be a spark off the bench is his ability to create things in isolation. He can break down his man off the dribble and create offense for himself, if your offense is stagnant, especially with the second unit. So it's going to be a short highlight clip here. We're going to talk over it, but take a look at Rubin Jones creating in ISO. If you're going to take a flyer on a guy, it really might as well be on someone that has an identifiable skill that you might not have necessarily on your roster. And Rubin Jones fits that mold. I mean, he can make tough shots. He can be a spark plug. He can break his man off the dribble and get to the rim and do a lot of things for you. So I think from the role you're bringing him into play, it could just be a very strong fit for Michigan, a really good bench option, someone that brings a spark. And that's the 6-man class for Michigan right now. It's dynamic. You have your front court taken care of with multiple options who can play together, or who could, if one guy gets in foul trouble, one guy can just man the 5 by himself. So you feel really good about that. You have your backcourt with a couple of primary ball handlers, one who can be more of a distributor, one who can be more of a shot hunter, and then you have a knockdown shooter who's going to come in and just provide spacing and provide you the space you need to operate your offense. And then you're able to top all of that off by bringing in a 6th man, or, a 6th man in this class who can create for himself, who can give you a little bit of continuity on that second unit, perhaps. So you're feeling really good. I think for a first-year coach, a coach who is very familiar with success and knows how to build a program successfully, he's put something together that, one, I think fits the culture of the program historically. Two, I think fits the overarching feel of the Big Ten. Like this just feels like a very Big Ten team when you look at how it's been constructed through the transfer portal. So you have to be very happy, very confident with what they've done. And for me, when you look at a perfect portal class, that's my definition, right? That's why I've decided to include Michigan in this perfect portal series. Let me know in the comments though what you think. Michigan fans, let me know if I'm correct on some of my assumptions. Correct me if I'm not. But thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this, for being a part of my community. I very much appreciate it. If you got something out of this or learned something new, please, only ask I have of you is to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna, come back to Michigan, I'm sure several times this year, but just really appreciative of everyone and the feedback I've gotten and the community that we've started to develop. So thank you again for that. I'll put another one of these perfect portals. I think we got one more of these to do. That'll be out early next week. But I appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you on the next one.